Hi, Kodi Dixon here. I did my final research project over the census. I titled this research Counting America. When I saw that our class was kind of dubbed the study of ethnicity and religion, I really kind of wanted to look into how that's really, how is that studied in other ways, I guess. So I'm just going to jump right in and talk about the census. Hang with me. I know it doesn't sound invigorating, but I promise it will be. I'm going to move this up here so I'm not so distracted. Um, okay, here we go. Let me get my slides going. So, what exactly is the census? So, just to grab some of the facts right here off this text that you can certainly read while I chat. The census was the very first census happened in 1790. It initially started out as a Monday in August, August 2nd, and it stayed in August through the 1800s, through 1820, and then in 1830 through 1900, it was in June, and then it moved to April, and then currently it has been April 1st since 1930. So every 10 years on April 1st, we do our census. So, what exactly is that? Well, it's a series of questions, and throughout this entire presentation, you will see little screen grabs like this. And these are just samples I have pulled from this really cool website that shows just the evolution of the census. It's mandated by the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, and we only get one chance every 10 years to count every head and to really figure out who is here. So, just to really kind of jump into that, just looking at all the questions. Okay, perfect. This is what we need to see. So, what started out as 6 questions originally, it ballooned up to like 20 something questions, and now it's back to, I think, 8 is what we did in this last 2020 census. So, $43.3 billion federal funding that we received in the state of Texas based primarily on the data that came from the census. So, a lot of the purpose behind the census is to allocate funds to the states where it's needed most. So, let's keep going. So, another cool thing about the census is that it's used for all these different things: levying taxes, distributing those tax funds. Um, who needs the military strength in what ways? Like the National Guard is deployed to Texas during inclement weather or natural disaster, stuff like that. Social programs, population density, where people are moving from, where they're moving to, those sorts of things to just kind of see where people are moving and where they're moving to. Um, so, as the fabric of America has changed, so has the census. Again, just to go back to these screen grabs, so many cool questions that have been asked. Um, where do people live? Do you have people that live with you and are staying somewhere else? Just stuff like that. How many hours of work do you work a week? Here's one from older times. If you were ever married, has person been married more than once? Jumping ahead. So, like I said, the evolution of the census. This is a really neat screen grab that I took from, I believe, the census.gov website. So, this has counted males under 10 years, female under 10 years. I just really like this as a background. And these are, of course, the different towns that these numbers belong to. So, I thought that was neat just as a background. Oh, I got that from Puddle. That's what my little reference back there said. Okay, so these next few slides are really going to be examples of questions. It's going to be what I considered kind of big time frames and where we were going in the country at the time. So in the background, you can see all these bigger dates. It's actually a timeline of stuff that has gone on in America. And then the overlays right here are the years that the census was taken and just a brief little history of that particular year. And again, this is just an example question from the census. I don't know what year this one is particularly from, but of course, 1719, first year was ever taken. So these numbers here are correlated to obviously this right here. There was one question asked about occupation, one question regarding identity, and then four different questions that were in different fields. Same for here. So we got rid of occupation. Some people felt there was no uniform collection system, so the data was unreliable. So they just kind of was like, maybe we'll skip over that. Excuse me, moving on. So in 1850, they had to balance between the free and slave states. So, to increase accuracy, the census had to separate schedules for free and enslaved populations and collect data at the individual level instead of by household. So, this I think was a really big year. So, here you can see that the census has grown by these amount of questions instead of the other ones. We're now asking about national origin. Is there a disability? Different races? There's still only one question regarding race, but that'll change. I don't know if this number will change, but the actual descriptions of the questions will change. So anyway, this was a big year, I thought. And then measuring immigration, I thought was a huge year as well. Again, the growth is just really cool to see from one question about occupation to going to five. Now we've added a veteran status. Education has grown by a question. We now have five questions regarding family. It's just really neat to see what information is eventually collected. So this here, the Jews were really kind of still upset after the Holocaust. Well, I'm kind of glitchy there. Let me try to sit still. Anyway, so we got rid of religion. So there's still tons of questions. 18 questions now regarding occupation, veteran status, education, family, identity, race, origin, housing. So this housing question is going to grow, but then it's going to disappear. It's going to grow a little and then go down and then disappear. I also thought it was really neat that in 1970, after the Civil Rights Movement, the women got really mad. Like, what if I'm the head of the household? What if it's not my husband? So that question was revised in 1980 after Civil Rights Movement. So all these questions, 1970, we're asking all these questions. So I jumped to 2010. Of course, there were several censuses that took place between 1970 and 2010, but the 2010 census really took a huge cut. American Community Survey came out in 2005, and it got rid of a lot of the housing questions. So all these, the ACS took over all these big housing questions. So throughout the entire presentation, these red lines here are all about occupation, and then these bigger orange bubbles are about housing. And throughout the entire slideshow, you'll see those in the background and just the different ways the survey has evolved. It starts up here and then kind of works their way down. Anyway, I'll come back to that. I really wanted to show how we really have evolved as a country regarding race. In the early years, free white males, who are they? What are their names? And now, we obviously haven't had slaves in the country for some time, but we do really want to press into who people are and who they identify as. And I feel like we really do give people a tiny little slice to have their voice heard in who they are and who their heritage really and truly is. So I just really wanted to showcase those two different questions. Okay. I pulled this timeline because I wanted to show these events. Bill of Rights, the Trail of Tears, the Mexican-American War. This picture right here I pulled straight from Google. It is, I just Google searched Trail of Tears and that's what came up. I can't even imagine how people took part in a census on the Trail of Tears. Like, I know that there wasn't, like, I just can't think about people coming by on the Trail of Tears asking, are you an immigrant? Well, yeah, sort of, because I'm immigrating from the place I was kicked out of. So it's been very interesting to see how the America has gone through these major events: World War II, the Great Depression, just stuff like that. Social Security Administration. We did the census for how long without having um, the Social Security Administration? We're all identified by our Social Security number, it seems like. So, anyway, I just really wanted you guys to try to piece together in your mind people coming by asking questions regarding who lives in your household during a time period such as the Trail of Tears. And this right here, I labeled this slide in my notes, the small print. How is the data collected? Where is it processed, assimilated? How has it gone out? What is not necessarily the most interesting, but I think it is kind of interesting that the records of the census are not released until 72 years after it's done. So what we just did in 2020 will not be released until 2092. So if we can go back 72 years and see how much the world has changed, what is it really going to look like in 72 years when they go back and look at the data they just collected from 2020? So anyway, this is a really neat slide with lots of good information. I'll move me up here so you can kind of get, just kind of hang out on the screen and take a look at some of these interesting things. Um, it's been cool. It's been really cool looking at all of this stuff. I didn't think it would be, but it has been. I'm going to move on. This, of course, is my bibliography. It's